Hey guys, Jason Timothy here, and welcome back to another Music Habits video. This is where I share excerpts from my best-selling book, The Mental Game of Electronic Music Production. So today we're going to get into, have you ever considered being the best in the world at what you do? So what I like to do is start off with a book review and then get into it. So today's book review comes from Chris H. And Chris writes, I found the book to be very helpful. There's great information on music production. I especially like the tips section as there was lots there I had not thought about. It was also a helpful insight on how to think about production in order to get the most out of your time you have in the studio. It is written in a well thought out yet informal way, and I think it would be a benefit to both the novice and more experienced music producer. Thanks a lot, Chris. Much appreciated. If you would like me to read your review, then make sure to leave one at the Amazon site where you can pick up the book. And you might be next. So let's get into this. Have you ever considered being the best in the world at what you do? Have you ever allowed yourself to kind of think on that particular level? Do you think that you need to sell out in order to be the best or be considered the best? Do you think it's arrogant to even think on this level? Most people that I run into that are music producers are pretty humble, but doesn't mean that they're not the best at what they do. Our goal is always to get to that peak level where no one is quite as good at doing what we do as what we do. I wanted to kind of take a different perspective on this best in the world sort of scenario, because there's a few things that we could agree on. First off is being the best doesn't necessarily mean that everyone thinks you're the best. Everyone's got their own opinion on what they think is the best, and these can be involve a lot of heated arguments or debates or what have you on who's the best at what. And the only way you can fail at being the best at what you do is to try to be a second-rate version of what someone else is doing. When you embrace someone else's art more than you embrace your own, then you really take yourself out of the game, because they've already carved that niche, right? They've already made that for themselves, and that's why they're considered the best at it. So, I mean, it's fine to have your influences, but try to consider what you're bringing to the table that's unique, and really try to hone in on that, right? Think about it, like a recipe, right? We all take influences, right? So when you're trying to prepare a recipe, you're borrowing the ideas of a particular dish, right? And when you start, you're literally just copying that recipe, so you can kind of get the basic idea. But then over time, you could fine tune it and add your own unique flair to it, your unique flavor, the thing that is your personality. And although this recipe might not be considered the best for everyone who likes, let's say you're making spaghetti or what have you, you will be the best for a particular audience that has the same sort of tastes that you do. All right. And that's all you really need to worry about, is finding those people. You're not trying to please everyone. You're trying to find what makes you unique. And then you can find your audience of people who think you're the best at doing that. Right? Which is a lot less pressure than to try to be the best in the world overall. No one can really be the best in the world at everything where everyone agrees. But, there's many particular artists that are the best at what they do and still don't really get their art. Consider someone like Aphex Twin, right? I'm sure when he first put out his music, a lot of people had a big problem connecting to it, right? It was so different, even though he had influences of other electronic music. What he did was very specific and very unique, and in a lot of cases very jarring in comparison to a lot of other artists. So he carved out this niche that no one could really touch him in that niche. You don't have to like what he does, but if you like that niche, you know that he's the best at what he is doing, right? So this is kind of the way you want to look at your own art. Same thing with Brian Eno. He wanted to create music that was meant to be played quietly, that had no beat and no real structure, right? Which seemed kind of like an impossible task for anyone to find interesting at all. Unique maybe, but Most people didn't consider that you can make music like that and it'd be interesting. But over time, he proved people wrong, and he might not have been the very first person to make formless music, but he definitely capitalized on his own style of ambient music and is certainly considered the best at what he does. So this is more of the aim that you should consider going for when you're creating your art, right? If you want to be, for example, the next deadmau5 or something like that, you have to consider that deadmau5 only became the best at what he did because he put his own spin to what was happening in electronic music. And now he's got a pretty signature sound. People recognize his sound, walking into any room, when one of his songs is playing, if you know the artist. That's something that makes him the best. So you're not going to be able to be the best at doing what he does. But if he's one of your favorite artists, you can use that as an influence, but figure out what you're bringing to the table, or maybe you're mixing it with a different influence to make it stand out, make it be your own. And the thing is, you want to make sure that this is you. You don't just want to combine things that you don't necessarily love in order to try to create something that's different. So becoming you is a little difficult, and that's why when we start, we obviously are going to sound like the artists that we respect. But usually over time, you recognize the type of art you're making and the uniqueness of the art. Sometimes it's not very apparent to you right away, but after you've finished 15, 20, 30 or beyond songs, you start to find some cohesion in what you're doing that makes you unique. So sometimes you don't even have to attempt to be unique. The uniqueness will be shown to you by you continuing to do your art. As long as you're not trying to, like I said, copy another artist. Influence is one thing, but copying will only make you a second-rate version of someone else instead of the best version of yourself. Okay, so that is what I wanted to have you think about. If you like videos like this, if you like this particular video, make sure to tag a friend, like the page, like the video, and subscribe if you want to be tuned in to whenever I put out new videos. Also, if you're interested in my best-selling book, The Mental Game of Electronic Music Production, you can go and pick that up on Amazon. And if you want more of a personal kind of one-on-one approach with me, you can fill out a quick questionnaire. It's just at musicsoftwaretraining.com/application. Fill out a couple of those simple answers, and we can book a time one-on-one. Our first session will be free, just for me to kind of get to know you and figure out what your best next step could be. So with that, guys, have a fantastic one and take care of yourselves.